Hi everyone, this is Steven, host of Computer Art Explorers. Welcome to another exciting episode of exploring how to create computer-generated art. For the best viewing experience, please remember to watch this video in HD 1080 on a large monitor. Alright, to get started, we're going to open this folder up right here. This is the CAE number 0102 text art folder. Now this folder does contain everything in it that we're going to be using today, with one exception, and that is the SideBoss application developer. I'm bringing this up on the screen to show you that this is the minimum version number right here that will run the commands. Let's take a look at what this program right here is actually creating. It's outputting. Here is a background picture that has some clouds in it, and then this artwork that we created got laid in over top. I'm going to point out a couple of things about this. Number one, this text was not created at an angle. You can draw a font at an angle on the screen, but we didn't do that. We drew the font horizontally, and the reason is because if you notice, each one of these letters, it's yellow towards the top and it gradiates down towards a red. And if you go all the way down, like you can see down at the bottom here, it's red, and that full gradation got kicked at an angle up. So we're going to go through how this art was created, and I'm going to show you in preview. Well, let us blow it up. So you can tell, I mean, there it's blown way up, but you can tell how smooth those angles and those edges are. All right, and there's a trick to be able to get your artwork to look that nice. And again, this is extremely blown up, so you can actually almost see the individual pixels, right? That's the reason why it looks really, really good. Okay, now if you want to run this example on your computer, you need to install the font. So there's a font folder right here. If you click on that, click on this, here's this font. I'm going to right click on it and then hit copy, come to my desktop, right click, come down and hit paste. So here's the font right here. And to install the font, I'm just going to double click on it to open it up, and it's got this button right here to install. So it's showing you what this font looks like, and notice it is an outline font. So go ahead and hit install. Now this is popping up because I already have it installed on this computer, but that's all it takes. It installs it, and then you now have that font in your computer so that you can be used. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open this folder back up. If you notice right here where it says SideBoss source code, I'm going to right click and come down, and notice on this menu here there's an option that says compile and run. So I'm going to left click on that. So this program's coming up and it's going to step through different procedures. The first step, it's going to open a graphic region. The handle is going to be held by GR text, and it's going to paint a gradient background into that region. Now the image size, it's being displayed on the screen right now. Okay, the image size is 6,300 pixels wide by 1,800 pixels high. Now obviously you can't even put all 1,800 pixels on the screen, but I can go like this. All right, and it started out by painting this green on the entire thing, and then it drew what's called a gradient rectangle. All right, it uses it's almost like a yellow color, almost looks like a flame, right? The color of a flame burning. Uses red down here at the bottom, yellow, and then it gradiates from the red to the yellow, okay, vertically. Now, this runs, I'm going to grab the scroll bar on the bottom of the screen and go all the way over, it runs all the way across. So it's a horizontal gradient rectangle. Up here where it says paused, that means the program is paused. It's just a visual indicator that the program is waiting for me, the user, to hit the escape key to go to the next step. Another visual indicator that it is paused is the runtime window does turn the border yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape and go to the second step. Now here it painted the outline text. So I'm just going to go through this real slow and show you it says Computer Art Explorers. Remember I pointed out that like the bottom of the P was really red, and then the top like the letters like the E over here is really light yellow. Okay, this is how we were able to achieve that effect, and that is we created this gradient rectangle and then we drew the outline font on top of it. All right, almost think of like, you know, like a cookie cutter, right? And so there's where we're at right there. And still showing you the image size is 6,300 pixels by 1,800 pixels. There's a reason it's this big, because if you look at the screen, now it's probably not going to show up on the video very well. This looks actually pretty good, but you can still see jagged edges at the pixel level because you can see individual pixels going along the edges. And we want something for artwork that's a lot smoother with no jagged pixels whatsoever, especially on angles. So the way to do that is you start off with a huge image and then you scale it down. Then hit escape and go to the next step. So step 3, it flooded using the color to become transparent. So green, just like you would have like a green screen, this green is the color that is going to become transparent. So every pixel that has this green color, we're going to change that pixel so that it can be transparent. Go through the whole thing there so you can see everything, right? Green all the way around. And also notice green goes all the way up, green goes all the way down, right? So we've got this text centered vertically and horizontally. Go ahead and hit escape and go to the next step. Okay, in this step we declared the transparent versus the opaque pixels. So what's happened is that it went through and every pixel that was green, we used a command that turned all the green pixels to a transparent color. And when it did that, they're just going to show up as black. Notice that we had a black edge, or the outline, going around each letter. That black outline is still there. And even though you cannot see it on the screen, each pixel has 4 channels: a red, green, blue, and an alpha channel. And an alpha channel has the transparency of the pixel. So what we've done is we've taken every pixel that we wanted to be transparent and we assigned it an alpha value of 0, so that when we go to mix this on top of something, it will be a transparent pixel. The color doesn't matter because the pixel is completely transparent. And then for all the other pixels, we set up transparency of 255, which is completely opaque. And of course, you can set the pixels at anything in between and have varying degrees. That's where you can get into blending different things back and forth. I'm going to hit escape and go on. Okay, right now it's rotating. That's a huge image. It's going to take a few seconds, or possibly even more than a few seconds, for it to rotate. It says up here it's computing. Also, the border is blue. That tells you that the runtime engine is working. Here is my scroll bar, my vertical scroll bar. I'm going to scroll all the way down and all the way over. So you can see there's where we start. So we have plenty of room coming around. We have plenty of room under the P. And then we've angled this up. I'm going to go over, and as we go up, I'm going to bring the vertical scroll bar back up. And what I'm doing is I'm checking just to make sure that we did not rotate too far and clip part of our letters off. If we rotated too far, then what we'd have to do is we'd have to go in and change the settings and have instead of 1800, maybe we'd have to make it 2000, or depending how much rotate. If you're going to rotate it a full 90 degrees, then you'd want to start off with 6300 by 6300 so that there's room to spin that thing completely around. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape and go to the step 6. Now, I'm not going to touch the keyboard or the mouse. I'm just going to talk to you. So it's computing, and what it's doing is to do a quality image reduction. You only want to reduce the image by about no more than 10% each time. So you reduce the image a little bit, and then you take that image and reduce it again. And then take the resulting image and reduce it again. So you're seeing that right now on the screen. As it creates a reduced image, it puts it onto the screen so you can see it, and then it uses that as the source and then further reduces it. Now, if you try and do all your reduction all in one shot, it's going to look horrible, okay? It's going to be lots of jagged edges. Okay, so now it's done. Notice it came back and it said paused. That's step 6. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape again and go to step 7. So here we are in step 7. It created the alpha bitmap. Now, an alpha bitmap is a little bit different than just a 32-bit bitmap file, because what's happened is all the pixels in the file have been multiplied. There is a difference between a 32-bit bitmap file and an alpha bitmap file. An alpha bitmap file, all the pixels have a transparency value. Now, what's happened is we've created this checkerboard background, and then we've dropped this on top so you can clearly see what pixels are opaque and what pixels are transparent. So if it's a transparent pixel, you're seeing the checkerboard underneath of it. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. And this is where we've taken the resulting artwork, and then we've dropped it on top of a background that had clouds on it. I'm going to hit escape one more time, and this is where it's saving the files. All right, it's saving them at 300 dpi. So the 300 dpi is just a setting inside the file. You could change that in the program if you want to make it different. But if you were to bring this image into, let's say, a paint program or into any other program that you're going to import this artwork into to use it to do something, you might have to have the DPI setting set up, or it may not import it properly. And then the cloud art image, again at 300 DPI, but these are two different files, okay? Two different types of files. The cloud art is not an alpha bitmap, but this here is, the art text is. So that's the reason why in the file name, I simply put in brackets alpha bitmap, because there's no other real easy way for you to know that that is in fact an alpha bitmap, because the difference is in the data itself, in the format of the data, and technically whether their pixels have been pre-multiplied or not. So this program, the press escape to toggle on and off the full screen cloud art. So if I'm just going to hit escape. You could also hit the space bar. And so here's the two files, right? Now let's go take a look at the code. Okay, now I'm not going to explain everything here. If you're not familiar with the SideBoss programming language, we have an educational video series that you can watch that. Now, with that said, I'm just going to go through it. And the officer message hook right here, this is hooking this WM close. So when the user clicks on, for example, let me compile and run this and I'll show you. When the user clicks right here on the close button, it exits out. Because what happens is that this subprogram catches the Windows message close coming through, and it orders a fast termination. Fast means you don't have the runtime window, the master runtime window pop up on the screen and stop. Okay, so let's move down to your captain. So here I've got some setup control stuff. If you want to take the program and you want to play around in it, this is the best place to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something else while I'm here. I'm going to put -001. Now, this thing has got, if I hit save as, if you have if the name ends in dash and it's 3 numeric digits, it will automatically increment the digit, and then you hit save. So I can come up here if I make some changes, and I come up and just hit save as, save, or Alt F A enter. Alt F, A, enter. And you can notice up here, every time I do that, it is saving a different version of your program. So as you program, you're going to find out it's really easy to make backups and have a whole series of backups. So if you goof or you delete something out and realize all of a sudden, oh man, I needed that, you can go back and you can find it. This, I've got pausing between steps, yes and no. These are some just control variables that you can play with. If you put in no, then it will turn off the pause in between each step. And you can just watch the whole thing run all the way through. So for example, maybe you want to see what it's like if you only do it at 17 degrees, right? And you don't want to sit here and hit pause. So change it to no, go ahead and compile and run it. Now I am going to speed this up a little bit in the video editing. Okay, this is what happened by rotating it too much. It got clipped here and it got clipped here. The way to fix that is to change the starting height. The control is scale percentage. So right now I've got 28, and what that means is it's going to scale that down so that the final image is 28% of the original size. The original size was set into the original graphic region right here that we're painting that text into, 6300 by 1800. So these are the settings that are going to control it. The height of the gradient rectangle right here. And you'll notice that if you change that to 1800, go ahead and run this again. It goes all the way up, goes all the way down. So if I go to the next thing, you can see that you don't have really red down at the bottom, and you don't have really yellow at the top, because it's stretching the yellow color at the top of the rectangle all the way down to the super red at the bottom. So if you don't have enough, so you only have 500, okay, so that's going to be 500 pixels high, so it's stretching from there to there. But then you could have another problem, and here's your problem here, right? It's not filling. Right? And of course, because that's green, and that's green, if you actually ran this all the way to the end, that would be transparent. Everything that's in green is going to wind up being transparent. So, of course, the angle of rotation is there. So there's your main controls. If you take this program, you play around with it. But the real prize, I'm going to go ahead and hit read only now so I don't make some mistakes down below. Setting up the runtime window, if you notice, it's not the master runtime window. It's maximized. We opened up a runtime window, we made it maximized, and then I used all these different flags here. Okay, now you can click on any flag, hit Control Shift, and double click on it to bring up the flags. Here's a list of all the flags. Here's a list of the command that I use, this Open Runtime Window EX, and the flags let you do all different types of things. Click on that, come over here. I will show you this, that if you did not want to have the border on there at all, there's this command right here, set runtime window border size. That command will let you knock it all the way down to 0, and if you do that, you won't see that border that was going around the screen turning it yellow every time you hit pause. The next thing we're doing, this code here creates the font, and this is setting the height, this is setting the width. It's drawing it without rotation, but here, this will let you rotate it. For example, okay, so you can see how that's rotating. Okay, so this is two subroutines right here. A go block with a return is a subroutine. To get into it, you use the go sub. So you'll notice here's step 1. we're setting up this variable for going to the subroutine. Right here, it's going to execute all this code and it's going to return back to here and it's going to come down. Then it's going to go through this and it's going to go to the end of step procedures. So everything we need to do at the end of the step, it's going to run through here, return back. So the whole idea of a subroutine is coming into step 2, same thing. Here in step 2, we're painting the outline. And this is just standard, the font. We're setting the background to hollow, and that way no background pixels get touched. It gives you the cookie cutter type of effect. That's where the text Computer Art Explorers comes from. It's right there. And it's drawing it into the screen at the X position and this Y position. So the Y position is being computed based off some, like the height of the graphic region. Moving on to step 3. This is the step that floods using the color to become transparent. So right here, it's this flood using color command, and that's what does it. We give it as an input the color to become transparent, and then we give it the color used to draw the text outline. So that basically floods everything, and it turns everything into that green up to whatever is in this color here, and this happens to be black. Let's move down to step number 4, and this is where we're declaring what's transparent, what's opaque. So pretty simple. One command does it. This command, we're saying this is the color that we want to become transparent, and we want every other pixel in the entire target rectangle, which we're defining to be the entire graphic region, that we have that whole 6300 by whatever text in it, that this one command, and it does it on the alpha channel. There's 4 channels of color data, right? Your 3 colors that you can visually see, and then your alpha channel, which is your transparency value. So when 2 images get mixed together, it determines how transparent or how opaque each pixel is within the image that's being laid on top of another one. Let's move on to step 5. So here's the command. It's a rotating image. We're not going to shrink it, and I've shown in some other videos where you can shrink and rotate at the same time. And that works okay if you're not going to rotate it a whole lot and you're not going to shrink it a whole lot. But if you start rotating a lot and shrinking a lot at the same time, you're better off doing them individually. You'll get better effect. If you're really going for quality, definitely do your rotation of the biggest image possible first, and then slowly reduce it. And that's exactly what we did, so I'm going to show you that in the code. So this rotates it, and the graphic region that's being held in, here's the source rectangle. The GR text holds that entire text horizontally. We open up a temporary graphic region to be the same size. We define the temporary one as the target, and then we rotate based off the angle, and then we no longer need the original. Okay, the graphic region, it's eating up a lot of memory. We just want to free up the resources so we can use those memory resources for something else. So we close the graphic region of the image that's no longer going to be used, and then we take this handle and we assign the graphic region we just opened that now has the rotated image in it. We assign that back to GR text. Step number 6. All right, so this is what's doing the image reduction. And I've got in the notes here set up for a 10% reduction. So what we're going to do is we're taking the width and the height and we're multiplying it by 0.90 to give us, each time through this loop, we want to reduce this thing by 10%. And the way this logic works is that we're going to go, this loop is set up so it's going to continue going through the loop until the graphic region width of our image is, as long as it's greater than our goal, the goal width, we want to shrink it to the goal. So if this variable here is 20, for example, that means we want the resulting image to be 20% of the size of the original image that we start with. So this math here comes up with a number that tells us how wide we want this thing to be. All right, so we're going to keep going through this loop until it gets to that width. And we're going to drop the size down 10% each time until we get to that width. Now, to keep from shrinking it too much, we're going to test. And the test comes right here, limit the reduction to the goal. So here, this logic is going to prevent us in the final loop from shrinking it too much. It'll shrink it exactly to where we need it and no more. Here we're creating a new graphic region. So after we've figured out the size that needs to be done, and again, this math here figures out the new width and the new height for this time through the loop. And then this logic right here, it reduces the image, right? You get the source rectangle, target rectangle, and this does the reduction. Then we close out the old because we don't need any more, and we assign the new to the text. So if you can kind of follow that, that's how we keep, every time we go through here, text winds up being smaller and smaller until we get it to the size we want it. This right here is putting on the screen so that you can see the reduction. And that's the reason why we kept seeing it flash on the screen get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, because this one line of code right here it continually displays the revised GR text on the screen. Then after it's done with the loop, it takes the GR text, it pops it up on there, it goes over and executes this, and that's when you see the pauses in the title bar, and that's done here in the end of step procedure. Okay, let's move on to step number 7. So here we're creating an alpha bitmap, and we're creating it out of GR text. Now GR text is a 32-bit bitmap, and it has an alpha channel on it. So the pixels that are set at 255, they are going to become opaque pixels, and the ones that are set at 0 are going to become totally transparent. And each pixel within the entire bitmap has to get multiplied, and it's called pre-multiplication. And so this command does all that, creates a valid alpha bitmap, and then assigns a handle so that we have the variable alpha text to catch the number of the handle, and so that becomes our handle to the alpha bitmap. Then we're going to define a rectangle as the entire alpha bitmap that we just created. This command here is opening a new graphic region that is the exact same size as the alpha bitmap. We're going to define a target rectangle as the entire new graphic region. It's just like a little temporary graphic region. This command, checker target rectangle, this is the command that generates all those little gray and white squares, the checkerboard. So it's really easy to do because you just use this one command. Then the alpha blend rectangle, it blends the alpha rectangle. Okay, whatever's been defined right here, the alpha rectangle was defined as the entire bitmap, and it literally takes that image and drops it on top of the target rectangle. It'll shrink and reduce it if it has to, but we set these things up so they're identical size. And you want to do that because the shrinking and enlarging algorithms that are used by this alpha blend rectangle is not bicubic. It is not a high quality. It's like a real low quality shrinking. So you don't really want to use those if you don't have to shrink images. So the best way to make sure that it doesn't shrink is to have the target rectangle to be the exact same dimensions as the alpha rectangle, and then it just literally pixel for pixel just drops it down. And it does it with the blending so that the transparent pixels do not get copied in to this, and only the opaque pixels do. And if the alpha channel has a value of 20 or 30 or whatever on it, it gets mixed in at the right value. And so you can wind up with like watermark type effects and shadows, and there's a lot of neat things you can do with that. Okay, step 8. Paint the text art on picture of clouds. That right here, that does it all. Okay, it's defining the alpha rectangle as the alpha text. Didn't really have to do that because it was done up here, but I just did it because people may want to come in here and look at a particular step to see how something is done. So I just went ahead and put it in. Here's the image. We're loading it from disk. So here, cloud.bmp. If you're wondering where are the clouds coming from, right there. That bitmap file. You could click on it and open up with a paint program. So it's bringing that in, and that'll be our background image because we're defining the target rectangle as GR clouds. So you can use a command that says define target rectangle. This says alpha, but you could use the command that says define target rectangle, or you can use the individual variables. When you use right here, define target rectangle, and you get these 5 parameters. All it does is kind of verify that they're correct and then loads them up. The 5 parameters, it loads them up into these CB variables. So you don't have to use that command. You can just set the value of the CB variable if you want to. The alpha blend is just going to mix the two together, and then it's going to show it. So there's all your text that paints the art into the clouds and then shows it on the screen. Here's the save images to the disk. This is step 9 here, saving images to the disk. You will notice we're printing out what we're doing, said 300 by 300 DPI. That's because right here, 300, 300. Same thing over here. And moving on to step 10, while one when loop. This is basically an infinite loop. That 1 is never going to change to a 0, so the loop is going to go and go and go forever, unless you maybe have an exit loop or exit sub. So you're exiting the whole subroutine, or you're exiting the loop, something like that. But I don't have any of that there. And somebody's going to say, well, how do you get out of the stupid loop? Well, when the user clicks on the close button, this officer message hook catches that close button, and this command, terminate program fast exit, just program's done. All right, folks, that concludes this video. Hey, if you like it, give it the thumbs up on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and if you want notifications every time that we post new videos, go ahead and hit that bell button too. Have a great day. Cheers.